welcome. Today it's a little bit rainy, there's a little bit of a chill in the air, and I'm in a cozy mood. We're going to talk about my top 6 favorite books of the year. Not all of them were released this year, one of them was, but the others were released prior. Most of these books will have a Christian theme to them. One is a book I have mentioned before in this channel, and other ones will be new. I have done a couple book reviews before based on 2 books by Julia Alvarez. One of them made the cut today, so stay tuned to see which one. And without further ado, let's just jump right in. The first book I can honestly say has influenced my life on a day-to-day basis. Although it's perhaps the most influential, and I did want to put it first, the other ones I can't say they're in any particular order. The first one is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. This book was published in 2019. As you might be able to tell from the title, this book is about how the fast pace of modern life, especially in the Western world, is harmful to us, not only on a physical level, but also spiritually, and that's what the book will primarily focus on. To start us off with a quote, on page 19, Comer writes, "Hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day." And on page 20, he writes, Corrie ten Boom once said that if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. There's truth in that. Both sin and busyness have the exact same effect. They cut off your connection to God, to other people, and even to your own soul. As I mentioned, this book really has influenced my thinking, influenced how I go about my life day to day. It's led me to rethink how I spend my free time, even little things like why I walk so fast, or caused me to just linger a little bit more with people. This book is greatly inspired by the life of Jesus Christ, as our lives as Christians should be. This book has 3 parts. Number 1, the problem. Number 2, the solution. And number 3, 4 practices for unhurrying your life. It also provides compelling evidence with different quotes and research studies throughout to encourage us to live a slower paced and simpler life. It also dips a little bit into minimalism, which I've been interested in lately, but it's not entirely about that. It's just one small part. I would recommend this book for anyone who is feeling stressed or just feeling like they're too busy, they don't have enough time, and feeling like maybe there's something deeper and life is not supposed to be about all the stressful busyness that we get caught up in day to day. Our first novel was a nonfiction, and this next one is a fiction novel. The second book is one I actually just read a couple weeks ago. This one is called The Renewal, Midlands Building, a Project Restoration novel. And this is the second book in a series of the Project Restoration series by author Terry Krause. This was published in 2010. I realized I had this book in my Kindle library forever because in 2017, 2018, I was on this list where I got a free ebook every Tuesday, and this was one of them. I'd never read it, and I was trying to read books I already had in my library instead of buying a new one, so I read this book, and it was a page turner for me. It really kept me coming back. This was a fairly easy read, although I did get kind of lost sometimes or hung up on some of the architectural details, but the author is an interior design professional and has gone through many house renovations. There's no doubt that she's quite knowledgeable about the topic, and it really comes through in the writing. The book mainly follows 2 characters, Leslie and Jack, as they are both new to the town of Butler, Pennsylvania. So it's kind of close to home for me. Leslie just bought an old building that needs renovation, and Jack is a contractor, so you can see how she'll end up hiring him for the job, and maybe you can imagine where it goes. I kind of predicted the ending. There are several other characters that the novel does follow or at least check in on from time to time. And at the end of each chapter, there's an entry from Leslie's great-grandmother's diary, which becomes an increasingly intriguing parallel storyline. And at some points, it's really closely matched up to the modern-day story, and other points, it's a little bit harder to see the connection. But at the end, you can really see the 2 stories merge as the older story, the diary entries, actually end up influencing the modern day. This book was definitely a page turner for me. It has medium length chapters, but within each one are smaller sections as the narrative switches between various points of view. You can sort of tell in the beginning that each character has something that they're struggling with, some sort of struggle, whether it's in their past or in their present. There was one scene in particular that was quite a shock because you really find out the gravity of the character's circumstances. I will say this book does have a happy ending. I always like happy endings. Even though I did predict how the story would end, the twists and turns in the middle did keep me on my toes to see if I would be right. So if you're looking for a feel-good book that has a little bit of romance, a little bit of mystery, I'd recommend The Renewal. Our next book is a classic. I'm sure everyone has heard of The 5 Love Languages. I read The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts by Gary Chapman. This was originally published in 1992. Nearly everyone I talk to has at least heard of the love languages, has an idea of what they are. But if you don't know what they are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. It's the idea that we each have a main way of feeling loved and of showing love to others. Even if you think you've read all the articles or watched all the videos and you understand completely the 5 love languages, I would still recommend this book. I feel like there's still knowledge to be gleaned from it. Personally, I find learning from examples to be really helpful, and this book did a great job at providing a lot of different insights that the author has had from couples he's interacted with or counseled, and that helped me understand how the different love languages might display themselves or how they might even be neglected. I would recommend it to anyone. I think anyone can benefit from this book, but especially if you are in a relationship, this can be super beneficial for you as you are navigating, understanding what your partner's love language is, and even discovering about yourself. So I think it's a good book for anyone. If you are single, you can learn about yourself and what you need. Number 4 is the most recent book I read. I am still very excited about it. This one was Counting the Cost, a memoir by Jill Duggar-Dillard. This book was published this year in September. If you don't know, Jill was on the popular TLC show 19 Kids and Counting, which I have fond memories of watching with my mom, so the series holds a special place in my heart. Ultimately, the series was canceled for what we'll say was some very unfortunate events, not to make light of them. Let me just read the dedication of the book if you want to get some more insight about who her audience is. It says, "To those who have been harmed in the name of religion, to those who have suffered behind closed doors and have yet to find their voice, to those who have begun to find their voice but may still be living in a season of isolation, to those who, like Esther of the Old Testament Bible story, have courageously answered the call for such a time as this, Esther 4:14, and despite the backlash have now found their voice. From victims and survivors to strangers, family, and friends, this book is dedicated to you. May you all know that you are not alone, that your story, your voice, and your mental health matter." Then it ends with the Bible verse, "The Lord is a stronghold for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble." Psalm 9:9. In this book, Jill describes her experience behind the scenes of filming, how she really felt about it all, how it changed their family's lives, for better and for worse. It describes in detail how she felt it began to alter her relationship with her family and sort of strain the relationships and eventually cause a bit of a rift within the family and alter the family dynamic. This book might not be so intriguing to you if you've never heard of the Duggars, but I ate it up. I read it just in a matter of days, reading every spare possible moment I could. I don't think I even watched YouTube during those days. I was just always reading this book. I was almost upset when it was over. Yes, I recommend this book. It's really intriguing. I also did read her sister Ginger Duggar-Rollo's book that came out earlier this year, but for me, this one made the top 6. Number 5 is called Excavating the Evidence for Jesus, the Archaeology and History of Christ and the Gospels. This book was written by Titus Kennedy and was published in 2022, so just last year. As you might be able to tell from the title, this book presents the archaeological and historical evidence for Jesus, as well as other happenings and findings and places mentioned in the Gospels. It also highlights mentions of Jesus in other historical documents apart from the Bible. History usually interests me at surface level. I always wanted to be intrigued by history in school, but never really was that gripping for me. Some parts of it, yes, some things I find really interesting. I still like historical fiction, but this book I did really find interesting, although I will admit it took me a long time to finish it. It wasn't as much of a page turner as The Renewal and Counting the Cost, but I would say it was really worth it because there's a lot of interesting things that I learned about and really cool pieces of evidence that have been found. So I recommend this book for anyone who is interested in history, or maybe you're a Christian, you just really want to discover more about the archaeological side of things. Even though it did take me a long time to finish, I still recommend it because it was interesting and there's a lot of cool pictures and pieces of evidence that I won't spoil, I won't share here, but I thought were really cool. All right, now the last book is In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez, which was published in 1994. I have already made an entire video about this book, so I won't spend too much time on it here. This book was kind of my history lesson for the Trujillo era in the Dominican Republic. It did help make history come alive for me, and I really enjoyed learning about these key figures in Dominican history, as well as follow the story of their lives and learn about that period of time. But as I mentioned, I won't spend too much time on it. You can watch this video here if you want to hear my full review of it. The reason I picked this one over the other Julia Alvarez book I read, which was How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accent, was I liked the chronological order of it. I liked how I could follow the story more clearly than the other one, but that one was still good too. As I mentioned, you can go watch this video right here if you want to see my full review on this final book. Other than that, let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments, or even let me know a book that you recommend. I'm always open to recommendations. I love to read. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.